changing right before. I just wanna be. I just wanna be. So much is going on in the world. I'm happy that I got you as my girl. Things changing right before our eyes. Never before in our lifetime. I know that love isn't perfect, but with you, girl, it's so worth it. In this moment, we gon' take it, make it, break it. I know that love isn't perfect. With you, girl, know it's so worth it. In this pandemic, I don't wanna live it, so I'm gonna tell you, I just wanna be yours. Be yours. I just wanna be yours. No matter what's going on, I just wanna be yours. World coming to an end. I just wanna be yours. No matter what's going on, I just wanna be yours.
Risking my life every day. No, things will never be the same. As long as I got you, there's nothing I can't do. I'm stronger and better when we are together. With you by my side, just know we gon' ride no matter the weather, yeah.
I know that love isn't perfect, but with you, girl, it's so worth it. In this moment, we gon' take it, make it, break it. I know that love isn't perfect. With you, girl, know it's so worth it. In this pandemic, I don't wanna live it, so I'm gonna tell you, I just wanna be yours. Be yours. I just wanna be yours. No matter what's going on, I just wanna be yours. World coming to an end. I just wanna be yours. No matter what's going on, I just wanna be yours.
I just wanna be.
I just wanna be yours.
I just wanna be.
I just wanna be yours.
I just wanna be.
I just wanna be yours.
I just wanna be.
Be yours. What's up? What's up? Thanks for tuning in. I think my battery just died on my camera, so I gotta switch that out. I'll be right back. But in the meantime, I'm gonna rock this song again. I'll be right back. What's up, buddy?
I just wanna be. I just wanna be. So much is going on in the world. I'm happy that I got you as my girl. Things changing right before our eyes. Never before in our lifetime. I know that love isn't perfect, but with you, girl, it's so worth it. In this moment, we gon' take it, make it, break it. I know that love isn't perfect. With you, girl, know it's so worth it. In this pandemic, I don't wanna live it, so I'm gonna tell you, I just wanna be yours. Be yours. I just wanna be yours. No matter what's going just wanna be yours. World coming to an end. I just wanna be yours. No matter what's going on, I just wanna be yours.
All right, here we go. We're back.
No things will never be the same.
So thank you for tuning in. If you haven't, tune in. You could do me a favor. If you go to Facebook, go follow this page right here, X7 Studios. And if you follow the group, the 7, that's where you can post all your music and stuff like that. So make sure y'all go do that. That's Facebook. And the group name is called the 7. So make sure y'all go do that. All right, so I'm about to watch one of my favorite mix engineers. So we're just gonna watch it together. I'm probably gonna watch a few videos. I'm not really feeling too creative today. I may mix something. And maybe later I may get creative and make something.
My name is Leslie Brathwaite. I'm a mix engineer. Some of the people I've worked with over the years include Outkast, Cardi B, Beyonce, Jay-Z, of course Pharrell. Certainly worked with Lil Uzi Vert. I've mixed pretty much most of his records, most of his hits. Had the opportunity to mix EXO Tour Life and Money Longer and a few other of his big hits. In the case of Neon Guts, Pharrell produced it in LA. When he is talking to me about what he's looking for from a track, he often uses colors and textures as a way to describe it. Neon Guts kind of is self-explanatory. You know, you want it to kind of feel organic, feel bright, feel fluid, and kind of like neon. So in this particular session, I'll go through a little bit of my workflow and how I kind of approach things and my thought process as to what plugins I use, how I approach the music and the sound and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I will start off and just play it.
Yeah. And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts. Yeah. And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
So each individual vocal track, a question I get a lot is it cheating to use the Waves tune on every track? I think what happens is people confuse the function of plugins like this, and it's not cheating. It's trying to achieve a certain sound. In this particular song, they are going for a slightly futuristic, robotic kind of sound on the vocals, but not too heavy. It's not, it's not going super robotic. It's just enough to kind of give it a little bit of flavor of futuristic, and you want it on every vocal, and it's about consistency. The other question I get is, well, why would you use something called a Waves tuner?
So I'm just now getting off on my fast. I did about a 28-hour fast or whatever. So I'm easing back in, eating food. So this is what y'all want to know what I'm eating. Some yogurt. And I'm about to put some fiber clusters and stuff in the yogurt as well.
Something that's used for tuning on tracks that don't even have specifically singing on them. And we'll explore that right now. And a lot of it is the texture. A lot of it even though when you're talking, you still have some melodic quality to what you're saying, and the Waves tune can kind of throw some of those notes around.
So this is, what am I? Oh, I spilled all of it. Almost spilled it. Right there. Some granola, some flax seeds. Gotta get that in your diet. Here, Lavelle.
To give it that same feel of futuristic, slightly robotic.
You never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder.
You can hear some of the melodic quality when he says, out of my shooter. And it kind of, it does the same thing with the note transition in his words to where...
You never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder. Flooding my chain and it...
So it still has the effect. It's still overall encompasses the effect of that futuristic, slightly robotic sound. It has a texture and a tone to it, and it works. And it's one of those things where you're trying to create consistency over all of the tracks, and that's why I use it on almost every vocal track in the song.
Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I put Chanel on my shooter, flooded my chain and it Gucci. I don't want that girl, she moody. Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I put Chanel on my shooter, flooded my chain and it Gucci. I don't want that girl, she moody.
It's always helpful to know the key of the song or the key that you're trying to achieve the tuning in. In this particular song, it's B minor. I select right here, B, natural minor. And then you kind of get to play with some of the parameters, like the speed at which you want it to kind of interact. The note transition determines how smooth it's going to jump between notes. The lower numbers represent a more robotic type feel. I like the fact that it has the keyboard laid out so I can kind of see and pick which notes I want to come in or out, subtract. I'm getting to see the tuning working in real time here. So these are Pharrell's vocals right here.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
That's the first plugin I would put on the actual audio to kind of achieve that sound. As I have like all of Pharrell's vocals or all of Uzi Vert's vocals in this particular case, feeding my aux track. The same space and elements that you hear and feel from Pharrell is kind of the same space and elements you want to feel and hear from Lil Uzi Vert. So first thing I do, I take a subtractive approach. I like to remove what I don't like first. In this case, I'll listen for...
I'm the same way. I like to subtract before I do anything.
Remove those S's. I'll use the de-esser to kind of just make sure we're keeping tabs on anything a little too,
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
It may sound a little muddy at first, but I kind of know where those S's are going to get poignant or where they kind of can tend to jump up a lot.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
So that last S on guts, neon guts, I just want to make sure I got the de-esser kind of engaged. It's not really doing much at this particular stage. Sometimes what you'll find as an engineer, as a professional, is we tend to do things that feel comfortable, that just kind of sit in our minds as the comfortable thing to do. It's like an athlete where they have a set of things that they do before they play. They might wear yellow shoestrings, or they might tap their heels 3 times before they go out on the court. It's kind of the same thing with engineers sometimes, with mixers sometimes, where I just want to know the de-esser is on there. I want to know it's doing something very slightly. Sometimes it's not a whole lot. It just makes me feel better. And as I do other things in the chain, it then serves a function, at least in my brain, to kind of even things out. So from there, the RE6, little light roll off again, you can see on the low end.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
Kind of clears up the bottom a little bit to kind of take away some of that low-end muddiness that can tend to translate to nasally muddiness, depends on the voice. And then, just kind of pinch in some frequencies in here just to clear up and give him a little bit more clarity. So a lot of times what you'll see, this is a feel point. This is what I felt right here at this point that sounded good. I am not one of those minds that gets into a whole lot of frequencies and points and numbers. And in this song I rolled off 60 hertz here and 50 hertz here. And that's kind of not how my mind operates when I use plugins.
I'm the same way. That's why I don't like to
EQs, because I
like to individually EQ my stuff as well.
It feels right.
I may have like a starting point, like pattern or something, but I like to
leave it alone. Sometimes I'll throw a plugin on and just engaging the plugin feels right, and then you don't have to do too much movement from a default position. It just depends. This particular EQ, the recording engineer Mike Larson had on that particular aux track, a lot of times I like to honor where they have things to kind of incorporate how they were hearing it and not go too far from what they had. And then we come here, our compression. My goal is not to always make things sound too linear and too compressed. I like a little bit of dynamics. I like to feel a little bit of movement in the vocals and in the audio that I'm working with. You're not gonna hear much of a difference as I A-B.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
Little bit of compression that you can kind of hear bringing in, the vocal again.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
My next plugin after the compressor is the SSL E channel. Sometimes those choices are just a function of familiarity. Sometimes
When I first started mixing, that was the first plugin I use, and I never enjoyed it as much as how popular it was. Oh, don't get me wrong, it was good, but for me, I just was like, it just ain't. It ain't. I haven't used it in years, honestly. I still got it, but I haven't used it in years. Maybe I need to do a mix with it. Just maybe now with my experience and my knowledge, maybe I may take a different approach with it. So I may use it on the next mix or so.
you just choose the E channel plugin because that's the console that you came up on. So for me, it's the natural choice. So this is bypass, and then I'll engage it.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
That's where I really do a lot of the heavy lifting of the shape of the sound is with that EQ, and you can tell right away the difference of just rolling off so much of the wind. I kind of went a little drastic because I wanted to push out some more of the clarity up top. I'd probably start pulling down wherever the default is. I'll just pull it down.
Like I got neon guts.
And feel like, okay, I might need to work my way up the frequency chain to kind of get to the frequency that I want to roll off more. So.
And I got a colorful aura.
Need a piece of fruit.
Neon guts. And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts. And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
And why I probably stopped here, right in that range. I know as I hear it, that's what I'm looking for.
And I got a colorful aura, like aura, like I got neon guts. And I got a colorful aura, like I got neon guts.
And why I probably stopped here, right in that range. I know as I hear it, that's what I'm looking for.
And I got a colorful aura, like I got
that much low end coming off is what I'm looking for as far as the sound that I need to get in line with the track. More so for this particular song, that was more of a thought process of where I know Pharrell needs to meet Uzi, because Uzi has such a thin vibe on his voice, and I kind of want them to be in the same general space. And so this was more a function of trying to make sure that Pharrell gels with Uzi better so it doesn't sound like such a drastic difference. A lot of times what I'll do around 3K is just cut a little bit, just some of that edginess off of the high mid frequencies of the vocal, and then up in the higher range frequencies, I'll tend to boost a little bit of some of the higher end frequencies just to give it a little sheen on the top. That's usually universal moves. These aren't specific to any one vocal. You can see this is Pharrell's EQ. I'll slide this over a little bit and I'll bring up Uzi's right here. And as you can see, they are exactly the same. You can tell with Pharrell's, we rolled off a little more down here, whereas with Uzi, I didn't roll off as much. And these slight differences make, kind of help blend them together and bring them together as far as just trying to make sure that Pharrell and Uzi feel like they're in the same zone, same vibe type of thing. This particular session, when they sent it over, they had the Chris Lord Algae plugin on here. They kind of figured out what kind of bite and what kind of room, and they wanted to do a little push, and all the settings that they have on this particular plugin is the sound that they kind of came up with. And I just implement that in what I'm doing. I kind of keep it in there, make sure I'm grooving with that. This is the Chris Lord Algae plugin you're seeing on Pharrell's aux, and then this is the one on Lil Uzi Vert's aux. And if you see, they're exactly the same. And so that just kind of tends to keep both of them in the same space, helps to gel them together as a cohesive unit on the song. If you have two artists on a song, you typically don't want Pharrell to have a whole different type of sound and delays and reverbs, and then Lil Uzi to have something that sounds totally different. You want them to kind of feel like they're in the same space participating on the same song. This is not me being lazy. This is just a part of that thought process of keeping it sounding cohesive. And it just makes it a little more palatable and comfortable for an engineer like me to lock in and say, oh, I need a little more bite, or a little more push. I think the CLA plugin is extremely intuitive in the sense of just even the terminologies from, you go from chamber to tight to large, and that describes the size of the EQ. That's the terms that we use as engineers, and coming up in this industry, those were the terms I used. I used tight and large and chamber. I didn't use specific numbers and all of that stuff. So this is intuitive, and it's a good tool.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some.
The first parameter I plugged in represents the low end, the lower frequencies in his voice. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it does have a slight effect.
Paper, cause you should own what you label.
Treble, that's the bite. You can have it either at bite, you can have it at top, you can have it like ridiculous. But let's move on to the compression.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper.
So you can see, as I move through the different parameters of compression, you can hear the compression jumping in. And then next one would be the reverb. And you'll hear, even though it's very low, it's a pretty large chamber.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper. Cause you should own what you label.
And then the very last one was the delay, and they had it on quarter. And then you can hear the slight delay in the back.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper. Cause you should own what you label.
A nice toolbox of just some cool little tricks and trinkets that is great to add on there. So the next plugin in the chain is going to be our 76, one of our classic compressors. This particular compressor is doing the heavy lifting as box of just some cool little.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
It's great to add on. At top, you can have it like stuff. So this is intuitive, and it's a good tool.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us.
The first parameter I plugged in represents the low end, the lower frequencies in his voice. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it does have a slight effect.
Paper, cause you should own what you label.
Treble, that's the bite. You can have it either at bite, you can have it at top, you can have it like ridiculous. But let's move on to the compression.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper.
So you can see, as I move through the different parameters of compression, you can hear the compression jumping in. And then next one would be the reverb. And you'll hear, even though it's very low, it's a pretty large chamber.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper. Cause you should own what you label.
And then the very last one was the delay, and they had it on quarter. And then you can hear the slight delay in the back.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper. Cause you should own what you label.
A nice toolbox of just some cool little tricks and trinkets that is great to add on there. So the next plugin in the chain is going to be our 76, one of our classic compressors. This particular compressor is doing the heavy lifting as far as this vocal is concerned. You can definitely hear and feel the shape of the compression. It really adds to the sound of the compression.
I got love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper. Cause you should own what you label.
And to the untrained or average ear, that just simply sounds like a volume jump. But it also, it compresses, it brings it in your face. It adds some characteristics to the signal. At that point, once everything jumps up, the compression works on the high-end frequencies a certain way and you hear them. Now I want to come back and attack it with a de-esser from a standpoint of just toning down some of those brittle S's that tend to jump in. It's going to be same frequency range, and then this kind of helps control some of the crazy S's that may jump out and sound a little too harsh or a little too crazy.
Love for you haters. Ain't you tired of enslaving?
In this case, it's working a little.
Come with us, make some paper.
Little drastically, because I didn't want Pharrell to sound too kind of almost sounds like a very thinny, top-endy, sheeny thing that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in this particular song, I wanted to kind of steer more away from that.
I got love for you haters.
Ain't you tired of enslaving? Come with us, make some paper.
And how that translates to the average artist, a lot of times the artists will say, you'll mix a song, and one of the first comments you'll hear as a mixer is, especially from the hip-hop, pop world, or hip-hop driven world is, man, I sound too clean. And so a de-esser is a good way to dirty up a vocal because it brings a lot of that top end sheen off. It kills some of those bright S's, which translates to some people's minds as clarity, but the average, like I said, the average rapper, producer that's hip hop driven will then say, muddy me up a little bit. I want to sound grimy. I want to sound dirty. That's a very efficient way of accomplishing that.
Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder.
And then this is with it on.
Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder.
And then to sum up the vocal chain, a lot of times I will then come back and throw the R compressor on just to tame things down a little bit, little light compression. A lot of times, especially the compressor I put on the overall end of the chain, you probably won't even hear it working. My theory on compression is if you can hear it really well, you're probably compressing a little too much.
I got love for you haters. I got love for you haters.
It's just really just taming down just the way he jumps in on the I. It just kind of tames things just a little bit. It's not doing a whole heap of compression. It's not squashing. It's just taming some of those things that may tend to jump out just a touch. For Uzi, the same thing. It's just, we can play a little bit here.
Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder.
And then with it in.
Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder.
So it's all about just keeping that vibe of how thin or how thick each person's vocal is to kind of keep them in the same general space so that they don't sound too far off from each other. A lot of times with overdubs, ad-lib tracks, it's about the function of how they fit into the recording. For some records, they are just meant to hang in the back, just be an accent, just sound like some crowd noise, just kind of come in. These particular overdub tracks for Lil Uzi Vert, on the audio, I used the wave tune to just kind of stay in line with what he was doing and the sound that he has.
Lord.
It kind of gives it that little feel. Same key, same note transition numbers, same speed as far as the retune speed. And a lot of times what I'll do is those tracks then would have some type of slight delay, a slight reverb on them to give them a feel, to throw things around. On these particular tracks, I'm using the H delay. I'll move that a little bit to the side. I'm also using the R-verb to kind of give it a little space. I'm also using the S1 imager. And the S1 imager just kind of helps place things in the stereo realm, in the stereo spectrum, just kind of widens things up a little bit, widens up these effects, the reverbs, the delays, to kind of spread things out and not keep everything in the same space. With ad-libs and overdubs, to try to maintain their presence but not drawing away from the main vocal, I think really, to be honest with you, is just a function of volume and levels. And a lot of times we can tend to get too in our heads in the mix about what we're doing, and we don't revert to the more basic things, which is it's just levels and volumes. And so like you hear right here with Uzi, where you have the main vocal.
Never stayed in Kahlua. I push it now on my shoulder.
So even the OYs and the yas and all the little things that come in the background, so that they don't overpower the vocal, I think it's just really a function of your levels that you keep them at. In this particular song, I didn't bust the ad-libs into a separate set of auxes. I used the same aux that Uzi's lead is bust to. It's the same aux the ad-libs are bust to. I didn't separate how I EQ them. The auxes, when you bust them to different auxes, that's usually a function of wanting to EQ them differently from the leads. I wanted to keep that feel the exact same. So it's just a tool of efficiency. If you know you're not gonna do any different ad-libs or different EQs, I just use the exact same aux. This aux right here with all these plugins where you have the de-esser, the REQ, the R compressor, you have the SSL, you have the CLA, the 76, the de-esser, and the compressor again. This aux is encompassing the sound that I wanted to achieve for the leads and for the ad-libs and the backgrounds. And so I just left them out of the same off. So as I play...
Yeah, you never stayed in Kahlua. I put Chanel on my shooter. Flooded my chain and it Gucci. I don't want that girl, she moody. I'm basically saying I'm cooler. Get Dior discounts from my cougar. Back in the 6th grade, I got them bad grades. I was in love with my tutor. See, musically, Lil Uzi trapping, man.
It happens a couple times in the song where Uzi kind of just does this whole dark thing. He goes in, I'll play a little piece of it so you know what I'm talking about. It is this thing right here. And as you can see, we have our trusty friend. This is like my favorite delay of all time. I love this delay for a whole lot of reasons. A, because it's a delay, it works, it just does what it says. And it's a simple tool. You figure out, do you want a quarter note delay? Do you want a quarter triplet, eighth delay? You know, it's very intuitive, very straightforward. You see your BPMs, you know how much your feedback is gonna be here. And the other thing I like about the H delay too is as you play with it, and you can automate this, as you play with the different parameters and you play your sound, you get all these quirky like effects like so that's always fun. Like I said, it's a beautiful piece of gear. Another cool thing about this delay unit, which is great, which is always useful, is it has filters. And so you can like do high pass, you can do low pass. And a lot of times with the delayed signal, you wanna sometimes affect the frequency of the delayed signal so you can hear it better, so it can punch through better. So right there I can roll off. And now the delayed signal is very thin, very high-endy. There are times when you can have too much delay in a song where it's just overpowering. There's times when it's just there for a subtle effect to take up space. Sometimes it's just there as a feel thing to take up a little of the background space and a lot of the gaps in a song. And sometimes it's meant to be heard excessively and a lot. Like in this particular section, Uzi wanted it to be very like, you know, overbearing. So he didn't want it filtered out. And as a background piece, he wanted it as a part of the actual sound where the delay was heavy and just real dominant in that space. I have a very minimalistic approach to EQing and plugins and mixing. I don't just slap a whole bunch of plugins on everything. I take the material for what it is, figure out what's needed. I have a very subtractive approach to how I mix, kind of like when you're cleaning up a room. When you're going to clean up a room, the first thing you want to do, you don't want to start, you know, shining off surfaces and spraying cleaner on everything. You want to get rid of the trash first. Remove the stuff you don't like. And that's how I approach a mix is I come in and I take away the things I don't like first. And then I start putting plugins on here, plugins on there. And it's just trying to use the natural balance of what's there and then using the plugins to just enhance, you know, accentuate, bring out certain things, that kind of thing. You figure out what balance and blend work for you, and you just go with it.
Mama said, let me see the witch. Boy, you know, light and dark don't mix. Mix it up, boy, bad luck. Sick to my stomach with them.
I love how he approaches mixing. He's one of the greats. I'm about to watch another one. This one about 45 minutes. I never seen him before, so this is going to be new for me. Yes.
Now I'm out here looking like revenge.
Grammy Award producer Oakfelder has worked with a vast array of stars, including Rihanna, Alicia Keys, Ariana Grande, and Demi Lovato. Demi's track Sorry Not Sorry was an international hit, and in this Sound on Sound exclusive,
Okay.
Oak takes us through some of the in-depth production processes he uses when working on a song.
Yeah, typically before a session start, I like to start with a blank canvas, which basically is in Logic Pro, just file, new, and then literally nothing, because I tend to find that, some people do like the template sessions where they'll have like drum plugins and then keyboard plugins so that they can go straight to them and just play. And I don't like that approach because I think that tends to limit your thinking. Sometimes you might not want to start with a kick. Sometimes you might not want to start with a keyboard. Leading up to that session, you have a lot of preliminary conversations with people because the artist has their own expectation for what they want to do. And so, you're asking other producers, what vibe the artist is on, and you're asking A&Rs and people that work for the label, et cetera, et cetera. And the one thing that kept getting thrown out there was soulful. Everybody kept saying she wanted to be soulful. She wanted to have like a soulful vibe, which I thought was a natural fit because her voice is fantastic. I mean, she's got a fantastically, it's a powerful voice, and it can be a soft voice, and there's a lot of soul and emotion in how she sings. So I knew that was the thing, but I didn't know what else. And to be honest with you, beyond that, I had no idea what to expect, what she wanted to do before she walked through the door. But then she walked through the door and she sat down. And typically the first thing I do when I'm working with an artist is I say, why don't you play me the stuff that you already have? And I do this for two reasons. Because I want to make something that's cohesive to the rest of her project. At the end of the day, I believe that production is a service industry. And a lot of producers get that mixed up, in my opinion. I think they think that they're artists. They're not. You're not. Producers out there, talking directly to you. You are not an artist. You are a servant to the artist. So the artist walks in and they have a vibe and an energy. Your job is to help them achieve that. So, she plays me her material. And the second reason why I listen to an artist's material is because I want to beat what she already has. I want to take what she's already done and just, okay, I'm not going to use that Amuse Oaks track. So she played me what she had, and she had some productions that were like sort of on the soulful side. I believe there was a record that she has called Tell Me You Love Me, which is actually one of my favorite songs. And she played that record during the session. And I remember thinking, okay, there's like a sort of a choir element to what's happening here. So I'm thinking, okay, all right, maybe we can do like the choir thing on this record that we're getting ready to do. So then choir kind of led me to gospel. And I had like this sort of chord progression in mind. And I'm thinking this as she's playing me the material so that by the time it's time to start going, I kind of have a chord progression in mind already.
FanDuel Fight Night. From Octagon, Iowa.
I initially played this on a piano. Actually, what I'm going to do is create a piano here so that you can hear exactly what I was thinking. I'm using this plugin called Keyscape, which is Spectrasonics makes it absolutely amazing. So the story is, so I start playing this sort of gospel-y progression, and after everything that I heard that she played me and the vibe that she said she was in, I'm like turned around playing this chord progression. I can't see her. She's behind me. I was also working with Sean Douglas that day, who's the writer on this record. And so he's also behind me. I'm playing this chord progression, and I know that I'm like nailing it, right? I'm like, oh my God, I'm killing this right now. And after I played it, after I put it down, I turn around to get everybody's response, and it's like, and then one of them is like, it's on the phone. It's like, yeah, okay. Now there's no moment more terrifying than that for a producer. Like a producer will tell you, if they're not, the producer is the
That's crazy.
studio environment's version of a DJ for a party. You get what I'm saying? Like our job as producers is to like start the vibe and sort of ignite the fire and initiate the thing that creates this, amazing song. And if you can't do that as a producer, if you fail to do that, then the entire day is a failure. And then, people leave the studio and they're like, yeah, that guy sucked. So all of this is going through my head when I'm looking at these stone faces that didn't like what I did. And so I'm like, okay, maybe try another approach. And this is why I said earlier that it's important not to have a standard template up. Because as I'm going through sounds, I accidentally landed on the 808. It was a pure accident. And my hand hit the key. And
I tell people this all the time.
Woo! And I was like,
a lot of times when it comes to like my mixing or anything, sometimes it's an accident. And I tell my wife all the time, and she'll tell you that, and she witnessed it too. One day I was in here mixing, and I accidentally went to go for a plug-in, and it went to another plug-in. I was like, oh, okay. And it sounded good, or did something, and I just incorporated that in the song. A lot of
oh shit, okay, let's try that. So I basically took the same chord progression.
You was in here when it happened. Yeah, it happened all the time. Yeah, it went brrr, and I was like, I'm adding that.
Played, because remember, I want to do like a gospel-y thing. And I have like a little edit on here that I'm taking off so that you guys can hear what the original 808 sounded like. Let me see if I'm doing that correctly. All right, so this is what I ended up playing. So now that I'm playing this 808 thing, and it's like the speakers in there are like amazing, so it really sounds more like this. Whole room's like rattling and shaking, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is awesome!" So 808's down. I just needed like a little cursory sound, like something to mark my 2 and 4, so that you knew what the rhythm of the track was. So I went into, I use Splice quite a bit. Especially when I want like a quick go-to sound if I don't feel like digging through sounds, because you can pretty much type in what you want and then it'll pop up. And usually, maybe about 60% of the time I do that temporarily so that I can then go back and add whatever sounds it is that I want to add to the production. In this particular case, I ended up keeping the snap that I found, but it was... So then after that, I wanted the 808 to have like sort of this roll down happen, sort of this verify. Every producer in the world is going to know what that means. Sort of a verify at the end of the 808 to kind of give it a little bit more texture. So then that right there is what the whole song was written to. Literally just that. And while they were, sitting there just kind of coming up with melodies, I snuck my chord progression back in there, using a specific sound. A lot of people ask me what this sound is too, so I might as well just go ahead and tell everybody. I get this question on Instagram or on Twitter a lot. It's like, what is that sound that you're using in Sorry Not Sorry? Okay, so for anybody who's asking, it is the pizzicato wet cave in Alchemy, which is Logic's sort of stock synth plugin, but it doesn't act like a stock synth plugin because the library is just enormous. So this is the initial sound. So there's the initial sound. Really all I did to it, there's this plugin that Slate Digital makes called a virtual channel, and basically what it does is it sort of emulates all the harmonic frequencies that you would get from like a console, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it just adds a little bit more depth to the sound. Then a little bit of reverb.
It's 4 o'clock.
Already there's like a little bit more life happening in this sound. And then I EQ'd it, rolled it down to 1K, rolled it up to 50 so that it was a little bit less sibilant. The thing is that in synths where there's only the synth and the vocal, I have a habit of rolling off a lot of the high end. And the reason for that is because I want the vocal to pop more. And even in those situations, I tend to make the synth like wet and, you know, with not a lot of high end. And then I'll set the vocal to be the reverse.
One of the things I do too.
And I'll give it like a lot of sibilance and a lot of sizzle. And the reason for that is, to me, it creates more of an intimate moment vocally. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. But this is the sound after I rolled off the EQ. And after that, a sample delay to widen the sound. This is a trick. It's called the Haas effect, something that we do where we'll take one sound and we'll sort of delay it on one speaker by a matter of, you know, milliseconds. And that'll give it sort of like a little bit more. It's like a bootleg way of creating like a stereo vibe. And then after that, I use this program called Surfer EQ. And this program takes a lot of explanation. It's basically an EQ that follows the harmonic pitch of the signal. So if you bump a certain section, let's say if you're playing a C, and you want that the muddy range of that C to be dipped, you can do that. But once C moves to C sharp, that muddy range moves as well. Surfer EQ follows it and puts this sort of same dip in the muddy range for C sharp and then 4D and then 4D sharp, and it continues to go up and down. So I use this as a trick. If I have other elements in the production that I feel like might rub against this sound from a frequency standpoint, I'll tell Surfer EQ to pay attention to the other one and keep this signal out of the way of that one because it's tracking the pitch of both of those signals. So that's what I use this particular plugin for. And then after adding all of that, so after those elements, plus a kick, and the reason I add a kick is because a lot of 808s tend not to have a lot of punch. You'll find a sample sometimes that will have punch in front of the 808, but I find that it's harder to use those samples because what if you want to treat the punchy part of the sound differently than like the 808 part of the sound? So I tend to do my kicks and my 808 separately. So yeah, there's the kick and the 808 together with that snap and that synth. And then that is the loop that the whole song was written to. And this is the point that we got to when after they had determined, you know, what the melody was going to be. But we hadn't really quite figured out the concept of the song yet. Now here's the thing about being a producer. You are more than a beat maker if you were a producer. You know how to engineer. You know how to mix. You're probably proficient at an instrument. But none of those things make you a producer. It's not a requirement for being a producer. My requirement for being a producer is seeing the vision of what the song wants to be, what it wants to end up as, before you actually create it. That vision as a producer is what makes you a producer. And then you can go find the people that will help you put that together. If you don't know how to play guitar, for instance, and you know that you want to kill a guitar solo in a song, as a producer, you can go find a guitar player and tell him how to play it, which is, you know, nothing different than Quincy Jones would have did for, you know, whoever he was producing for back in the day. So during the session, as a producer, as I'm doing the production, I'm also paying attention to what's happening on the writing side. Now, my belief about music is this. A song is a conduit of emotion from one person to another. But in order to accurately depict this emotion, it has to be a snapshot of a moment, right? Demi was tired of being apologetic about some of the things she had been to up until that point. And she said that, during the course of the session. Now, it also happens that morning, I was having a contentious conversation with my wife. She won't let me call it an argument. And she's actually sitting right over there right now, so I'm really watching my words here. So we're having a conversation. She says something to me that really pisses me off. And I said, I don't like what you just said to me. I demand that you apologize to me right now. She's like, I'm not going to apologize. And I'm not going to apologize about not offering you an apology either. So then I go, are you telling me that you're sorry, not sorry? Is that what you're saying? And it's like, how you have light bulbs go off, right? Get off the phone, head to the studio, sit down, go through this process. Here, Demi says she's tired of apologizing. Hey guys, let's do a song called Sorry Not Sorry. Came right out. Now, as a producer, it was my job to sort of sit and listen to what's happening on the writer side while I'm doing the production. Because remember, a song is a snapshot of a moment. So these elements have to be built simultaneously. And they have to be built fairly quickly, right? Because nowadays writers are, especially Sean, man. Sean Douglas is such a fantastic songwriter. Every song I've ever done with him, he's been here for like an hour and a half, knocked the song out, walked out the door, and it was an absolute hit. So, but I'm listening to what they're saying as well because I want it to be cohesive. So yeah, I kind of blurted out, hey, let's do a song called Sorry Not Sorry. This was the loop. And literally the whole song was written to that loop. After sort of the general idea of the song was written, I remembered going back to the conversation that she and I had about what she wanted to do. And she said she wanted it to be soulful. And then she played the records that she had done up until that point. And one of them featured a choir. So yeah, we obviously didn't have like a full choir in the room. It was literally just me and Sean Douglas, Demi Lovato, and two of the co-producers of the record, Trevor Brown and Zaire Koalo. 5 people. So the idea is we took all of the vocals, all of the people in the room, and just sang the vocals all at the same time and stacked it over and over.
Talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby. If you talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby.
So then you stack it enough times.
Talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby.
And then start adding harmonies.
Talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby. If you talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby.
By the way, in the higher harmony, it's myself, Sean Douglas, struggling to get up to that range. I don't even think Zaire sang right there. I think Trevor did, though. He's got a great voice. But then it's us 3 guys and then Demi, who sounds like an angel amidst like all of us.
Talk that talk, baby.
I don't know if you can hear it, but...
Talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby. If you talk it.
She sounds like it's her that's making this sound so cohesive right here. So then you put all that together. You get enough people in a room and stack it enough times.
Talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby.
And then add to that a little bit of reverb. And there it is.
Talk that talk, baby. Better walk that walk, baby. If you talk that talk, baby.
So then that coupled with the 808, the kick, or the snap, the kick, and my chords. And that right there is what formed the basis of the production. So at some point we have to determine, okay, now it's time to cut the vocal. And I think that once we were at this point in the production, so this is like minus all of the accoutrement and the, percussions and ear candy and all that other fun stuff. Literally just this. The song was written and it was like, okay, I got to get her to cut a vocal. So she initially cut a scratch vocal. Even her scratch sounds amazing, but we cut a scratch vocal so that we wouldn't forget melodies or anything like that. And then the next day we jumped in after we'd done a little bit more production, and she cut it for real. And my God, it sounded amazing. It sounded glorious, man. She sounded really good on it. I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to vocals because I'm such a fan of it. I tend to be very meticulous, and luckily Demi is too. So we jived well on that front. But yeah, I think as a vocal producer, I responsible for maybe changing certain melodies so that it fits a part better, listening to what's happening with her vocal and maybe altering something to make it fit better, creating harmonic arrangements behind the lead that sort of accompany it and sort of make it feel better. All of that, I think, is a producer's responsibility, a good producer's responsibility. Demi initially loved recording on the Telefunken Elam 251. Fantastic microphone, and it used to be my go-to microphone. Not too long before Sorry Not Sorry, I bought the VM series microphone from Slate Digital with the emulator and all that stuff. And I was a little dubious about it at first because, honestly, because of the price point. I was like, there's no way that a mic this inexpensive is going to sound as good as an $18,000 microphone, namely the 251. So we did a shootout. And the first verse of Sorry Not Sorry was the reference for that shootout. And we recorded it, and everybody got in the studio, and I set the VM series mic to the 251 emulation setting. And we sat down and we had like a blind test, and it was unanimous. Like the VM won. No pun intended. Like won. It won. Like it was successful. The VM actually did better than the 251. And I think the reason for that, I don't think that would be the case for every single vocalist, but I think for Demi that happened to be the case because just whatever it is about her vocal jibed better with the VM microphone on that setting. So every song that I've ever cut on her is the VM directly into their 88 interface, and then using, I'll show you the chain that I use actually. So this is my standard setting. It's just a trimmer for gaining. The Blackbird edition of the 251 emulator that Slate released, the FG73, which was basically their Neve sort of preamp emulation, and then the 116, which everybody's seen that compressor before. Yeah, literally that's the chain, and every song I've ever cut on her goes there first. And some people tend to put this plug-in over the track so that they can alter the settings later. I'm a little more old school, so I actually pass mine through and print it as it's coming in, because you can route logic to do that. And then after it touches that, sort of my setup for after that is this. A little bit of EQ.
Oh, stupid snare! Ugh.
The FG401 just for like body and drive and push, and then just to kind of round it out, another 116. All those together, and the vocal sounds pristine, absolutely beautiful. So that's my chain for her. Man, that song was a blast to record. It was like being in a theme park and being on a roller coaster. Like it's so much fun because she has such a powerful vocal, and it's so effortless for her that it's it doesn't feel like work for me. And you know, there are times that vocalists go in there, and I won't name any names, but there are certain vocalists that do go in the room, and it's like, okay, all right, this is going to take some working to make sure that this sounds exactly the way it needs to. Demi's one of those people who, when she goes in the booth, it becomes a problem because she'll do 6 passes, and they're all fantastic. And it's like, pick one. They're all varying shades of incredible. You know what I'm saying? Pulling up the vocal session. I have the production 2-tracked. So basically I've done the production in a separate session, bounced it out and put it in here. And the reason that I do that, the reason that I used to do that has changed from why I do it now. Back in the day I did it because I literally didn't have the resources. I did not have a system powerful enough to have the full production open and then record vocals on top of that, because my production could easily get up to 80, 90 tracks. And I think that this vocal track this is 76, which is not a lot for me. So, you know, you're looking at almost 170, 180 tracks. Back in the day, that was a difficulty for me. I didn't have a system powerful enough to do it. Now I do, but I still 2-track the instrumental because I find that if the track is feeling good, I
do that too. I do it. I don't know what his explanation is, but my reason for doing it is when I bring in a 2-track and then I mix the vocals, that'll let me know if I need to adjust anything in the music. Cause I import it as a 2-track, but I deactivate it in that same session. So if I have to adjust something within it, turn up something or anything like that, it's easier to do it like that without messing with a whole bunch of CPU, because I got the same issue. I can't.
If the track is feeling good and I'm at a point where I'm ready to bounce it, I want to hold on to that. A lot of times you'll go into this point where you start tweaking things and then you over tweak and you've lost that loving feeling. Like you've lost that point in the production where you're like, oh, I love this. You've sort of gotten beyond that. And when I get to that point with a track, I like to solidify it and freeze that moment. And so as I'm cutting the vocal, I know that I feel good about the production. And if the vocal's not jiving well, I don't want to go change the production. I want to focus on making the vocal fit. And it's really a tool more for myself. Not to say that the instrumental is more important than the vocals are, but it really gives me an opportunity to sort of say, okay, this is a milestone where I feel good and everybody's feeling good about the track. When I bounce a 2-track, an instrumental, I make sure I go around the room and ask everybody, hey, am I cool to bounce this? And everybody thinks it's weird. Like when the writer is like, why are you asking me? You're the producer, because it has to feel good to you too. It has to feel good to everybody, the audience. So yeah, that's why I put a 2-track in here. And that's why I bounce a 2-track and then I import it, or I start a new session and I cut all my vocals to the 2-track. As it relates to the vocal, we always end up doing the leads first. So for this particular song, we started with the first verse.
Now I'm out here looking like revenge, feeling like a 10, the best I ever been. And yeah, I know how bad it must hurt to see me like this, but it gets worse.
So for her,
I just spent $3,000 on plugins and my mixes still suck. Do you know how often people tell me this? It's kind of...
For her, I'm meticulous. She did it maybe perfectly after the second pass. I got her to do another additional 8 passes after that because I wanted to get different tones. Like I'll ask her to do it one time singing it the way she naturally would be. And then it's almost like a director talking to an actor or an actress. Like you're telling them, well, here's your motivation for this pass. You know, now you have a lighter tone. Okay, now in this one, you know, you've got a nail stuck in your foot and it's really painful. Sound like that would sound when you're singing it. Like I give them all these different like sort of perspectives, and then that gives me more sort of emotional colors to comp from, because that's how I work. I usually get natural passes going all the way down, then I'll comp the parts that I think are more relevant. With some vocalists, it's comping the parts that sound the best. With Demi, that's hard because they all sound incredible. So it's like, it's really more about picking out what emotion is appropriate for every moment. I'll comp because before I do backing vocals, because I want the backing vocals to match what's happening in what's going to be that section of the song, right? And she sings it differently. I do the backing vocal, then they don't necessarily match up. Sometimes that's a good thing, though. Sometimes that's a good thing, because going back to pulling organic elements from the past, when you have a performance happening on stage, the lead singer and the background singers are different people. So they're not going to sing them the same. So sometimes that adds a little bit more texture to a song. I didn't think that that was something that was relevant for this particular record. And there's not any background vocals on this. Well, there is this.
How bad it must hurt to see me like this, but it gets worse. Now
So there's that. I am using Auto-Tune Pro on this, and I'm using their transpose function to get it to sound, low pitched or whatever. And I'm using the format function to make it sound like weirder and a little bit more alien. But when you take all that off and you listen to it,
Wait a minute.
you hear that it's actually me singing, wait a minute. That's actually me singing that. That's really the only background vocal here, if you want to call that a background vocal.
hurt to see me like this, but it gets worse. Now you're out here looking like regret, ain't too proud to beg, second chance you'll never get. And yeah, I know how bad it must hurt to see me like this, but it gets worse. Now payback is a bad bitch, and baby, I'm the baddest. You fucking with a savage.
Mind you, at this point, listening to the 2-track, there's that vocal, there's that choir vocal. It's adding a lot of energy, sort of ramping up the energy, because a song, I think a lot of, especially in pop music, you need to have like steps of energy, from low to high energy, from the bottom point to the climax in the chorus. Then you build again to an even higher point in the second chorus. You don't always have to follow that dynamic, but for this particular pop record, we decided to. So in this first, if you look at the screen, in this first pre-chorus, I have other backgrounds that are here that we did record when we did the backgrounds for the pre-chorus, but I ended up muting them out because I felt like it added too much energy for the first pre-hook. But if you listen to those,
Payback is a bad bitch, and baby, I'm the baddest. You fucking with a savage. Can't have this, can't have this. Payback is a bad bitch, and
which we ended up having in the second pre-chorus. And as it relates to the chorus, hook-wise, the backgrounds.
oh yeah, but nah. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
This is an inside joke between me and my wife. Whenever I sing high, my voice sounds, to me, it stands out. And I feel like I'm straining, and it sounds ridiculous to me. Everybody tells me it sounds good. I think it's hilarious. I think one of the funniest examples of that, there's a song that I produced for Alessia Cara called Scars Too Beautiful. And when you listen to the bridge on that record, there's a part that goes, no better you than the you that you are. And the response, she sings the first part, and then me and a crowd of people sing the response, and it's me like struggling to sing that high, right? I can hear that here. So if you listen to that response, that I'm not sorry, is me and Trevor and Zaire and Sean Douglas struggling to get as high as she did.
I'm not sorry.
That's her. She sounds absolutely amazing. Now here's us.
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry.
Really struggling to get up there, but it worked. I mean, it created like a crowd dynamic, and it's sort of a way to get like an audience to sort of emulate what's happening in the track. And it works, because when I've seen her perform this song live, that's exactly what happens. Baby, I'm sorry. And then everybody sings. This is yet another element of music that you have to think about as a producer. You have to say, okay, what is she going to do with this song on stage now? So it sort of transcends like the technical aspect and even the musical aspect of what you're doing. So now you have to think of it more from the social aspect of what it means to perform the song. So oh, here's a cool trick. So
Baby, I'm sorry. Being so bad got me feeling so good. Showing you up like I know that I would. Baby, I'm sorry.
there are sections to this chorus, the way that it's put together. You got so that section of the hook, the second half of the first half, and the second half of the second half, I call the C section of the chorus. I wanted to vocally differentiate that from anything else in the chorus. So on one of them, it's her singing solo. On one section, it's her with the crowd. And then it goes back to her singing solo, but I wanted to differentiate that from the first time she sang solo. So what I ended up doing was adding a low octave. So when you listen to it soloed out,
being so bad got me feeling so good.
And if I take that, if I play just the low octave of it, but you don't realize that when you're listening to it with everything blended in. Oh, here's a low octave. It's a cool trick, I think, to instead of having somebody naturally sing the low octave, just pitch it down one octave and then use a formant shifter to get closer to what it would sound like. Because it ends up being a cleaner low octave, especially for a female vocalist trying to sing in that range. Not to say that she can't, because I've actually cut her doing low vocals in that. But in the moment, and you're cutting the record and you're flying through it, like this section might have taken us like 15 minutes. It didn't take that long. But you want something that's clean. You want something that adheres to the original one very closely. So you just use the original one. Just pitch it down. It's such a good trick, and it sounds so clean, especially for a pop record. I've done it on R&B records too, though. This is my favorite background vocal in the song. So this is the second half of the second verse.
Right now, this is 'cause the grass is greener under me. Brightest technicolor, I can tell that you can see. And yeah, I know how bad it must hurt to see me like this, but it gets worse.
Some people have heard that section of the song and it's like, what is that synth that you have going on underneath the second half of the second verse?
One
And
viewers,
it's not a synth.
smiley face, alarm clock 1 hour 13 minutes and 23 seconds.
I love that background vocal. That's my favorite part of that song. I think because it's one of those things that's felt, not heard, right? And one of my producers asked me about that particular part. He was like, why go through all the trouble of writing that arrangement and taking the time to record it and meticulously construct it and spend all the effort when it's something that's so fleeting and so passing and people mistake it for anything anyway? And I remember reading a book about Steve Jobs. And in that book, he talked about his dad who built a cabinet, right? And this cabinet was supposed to sit up against a wall. But the backside of the cabinet and how beautiful it looked was just as important as the other three sides of it. And he asked, why is that important? He's like, because I know it's there. And I know it's beautiful. And I know that that detail exists. And that adds to the overall energy of the song. I think that that's true. I think when people, even if people aren't aware that it's there, there's an emotion that's attached to it that I think people feel. And it's like, I don't know what it is about that second half of the verse, but it just picks up and it feels good. Yeah, it's basically her just singing the chord notes, the chordal notes of the track.
I'm the same way. I'm always about the minor details, the stuff that people can't see. I always say that how you keep your closet is how the house is really represented.
But then when you add the low end, it creates the context. So on this, over this, it's very simple. I just have a channel EQ that's pushing up the high end a little bit. I got a multi-pressor that's sort of doing the same thing. I have the Logic compressor, which this is my salt and pepper. I use it on every single track. It's like, I don't know what it is about it. Like it's super transparent. Even though recently they've tried to like add more sort of modeling to the algorithm of it, even with the modeling, it becomes like this really transparent compressor that does exactly what it's designed to do without any quirkiness or without any twists or anything. And sometimes it's good to have like the quirky compressors and stuff like that, but sometimes when you just need salt, man, you just need salt. That's what that is to me. Silver Verb, which is the standard Logic reverb. I swear by it. It sounds amazing to me. I mean, maybe 20% of situations it doesn't work, but the other 80% is a lot of different applications. And then Eosis has this thing called the Air EQ. This is the older version of it. I have the newer one now, but at the time I didn't have that plugin. This plugin it's another EQ. It's fantastic. The best part of it to me is this air knob right here. This thing right here allows you basically to just create sizzle, and it's not harsh. The way that I like to utilize reverb is to understand the point behind it. Reverb is like technology's first attempt at synthesizing what it feels like to be in different spaces, right? If you and I were in a gymnasium together and you were standing at the other end of it, and then you said, "Hey, Oak," right? Or let's just say if you started singing the first verse to Sorry Not Sorry, which I'd love to see you do, by the way. I'd love to see you do that. This, I'm going to take all this stuff off that I have. So this is her vocal, Dry as a Bone.
Now I'm out here looking like revenge, feeling like a 10, the best I ever been. And yeah, I know how bad like this, but it gets worse.
So what I did was I rolled off a little bit of the high end and I added the reverb, because that's what distance does. Distance absorbs the high end energy as the high end energy of a sound as it travels towards you. Low end energy is harder to absorb because there's a lot more of it, right? Which is why you can hear low frequencies over larger distances easier than you can higher frequencies. So to emulate distance, roll off the high end, add reverb. But if we were in that same gymnasium together, you and I, and you decided to sing this verse to me right into my ear, which I don't know why you would do that, but hey, it's all good. If you decided to sing it directly into my ear, absorbs the high end energy. It's fantastic. The best part of it to me is this air knob right here. This thing right here allows you basically to just create sizzle, and it's not harsh. The way that I like to utilize reverb is to understand the point behind it. Reverb is like technology's first attempt at synthesizing what it feels like to be in different spaces, right? If you and I were in a gymnasium together and you were standing at the other end of it, and then you said, "Hey, Oak," right? Or let's just say if you started singing the first verse to Sorry Not Sorry, which I'd love to see you do, by the way. I'd love to see you do that. This, I'm going to take all this stuff off that I have. So this is her vocal, Dry as a Bone.
Now I'm out here looking like revenge, feeling like a 10, the best I ever been. And yeah, I know how bad like this, but it gets worse.
So what I did was I rolled off a little bit of the high end and I added the reverb, because that's what distance does. Distance absorbs the high end energy as the high end energy of a sound as it travels towards you. Low end energy is harder to absorb because there's a lot more of it, right? Which is why you can hear low frequencies over larger distances easier than you can higher frequencies. So to emulate distance, roll off the high end, add reverb. But if we were in that same gymnasium together, you and I, and you decided to sing this verse to me right into my ear, which I don't know why you would do that, but hey, it's all good. If you decided to sing it directly into my ear, I wouldn't necessarily hear all that ambient reverb that's happening in the room because I'm getting the sonic before it bounces off of anything. And you're right there. So all of the high-end energy and the frequency are still there. And that's essentially this.
Now I'm out here looking like revenge, feeling like a 10.
To me, listening to a song is like being at a concert where the singer is standing directly in front of you instead of on stage. All of the background vocalists are far away. The lead singer is sitting right in front of you. So that means all the background vocals have to have reverb.
Advanced Gorilla 4.
And the high ends need to be rolled down. And the singer's vocal needs to be crisp and clean and directly in front.
That's good, Guru.
And that is my approach most of the time to mixing a vocal for a song. Sometimes I'll fudge it a little bit and say, okay, I want this background vocal to sound angelic and have sizzle and be a little bit more otherworldly and not necessarily fitting within the natural order of how it would sound. So then, like that ooh vocal that I showcased a moment ago, I'll add additional sizzle to kind of add that sort of otherworldly, angelic, heavenly quality. But otherwise, it adheres to that strict rule of who's close, who's far away, who should be close, who should be far away. Sort of like mixing in 5.1 without actually mixing in 5.1. Now, put all that together, and you have a record or a background that sounds like angels. I mean, the fact that she's a fantastic vocalist helps too. Like without that, the rest of that is pointless. So yeah, that's pretty much the long and short of what's happening with the background vocals on this record. Hey.
Yo, that was so dope.
I hope you learned something.
I got some tips, some things to go look at and take it back to the drawing board for myself.
Anybody else.
I just became a fan of this guy. Oh, what up with you though, man? How's your week been so far? I'm about to get up off of here in a little bit. I'm about to make me something to eat. I'll probably get on later and produce something.
I am a 400-pound, 6'5" black Turk with a mohawk. Now, that's an important fact because that makes me unique. And I guarantee you, you're not going to run into another 400-pound, 6'5" black Turk with a mohawk. And if you do, get in touch with my management. They're somewhere in here. It's like a copyright infringement thing going on or something. I want to talk to you about a concept that you're familiar with, and that's the idea of paying it forward. Now, I'm a record producer and a musician.
Advanced Gorilla 4.
So I call it.
I'm good, bro. You on Twitch yet? I'm good, bro. You on Twitch yet?
Before. Yeah, I've been on Twitch before. I've been on Mixer. I got like 700 followers on Twitch, but that's when I used to stream all the time. I was getting good numbers when I used to stream all the time, but I stopped streaming. Yeah, but just follow me on there too. I'll put in there listening for you.
This mixture for me. Then my beautiful mom. That's her on the right.
X7AD. https://www.twitch.tv/x_7studios.
people like
Yeah, when I stream on Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, and Facebook. So.
But then she would also sing that style of music that we all think about when we think about a country like Turkey. That one thing that when you mention Turkey, you think, yep, this music right here. Of course, I'm talking about Motown and soul music. She would come into my room
Advanced Gorilla 4. Damn, don't flex on me,
when I
X.
was going to high school, singing, "You make me."
What you mean? I ain't flexing. I'm just saying I've been on Twitch for years. I stopped streaming, and my numbers should be a whole lot higher than what it is. Honestly, I used to stream 2K a lot, like 2K 16 from 16 on, and COD. And Rainbow Six, like I was on here I got on this platform for gaming, not music. I just switched over to just doing my music.
Early in my career as a record producer, where I'm sitting in a room with an amazing artist, a 1 in a million opportunity. I'm sitting in the recording studio.
Advanced Gorilla 4.
Early in my career, this is something.
LOL.
I'm definitely excited to be in this room.
LOL.
And I get a phone call.
Yeah, but I'm about to if you're on Facebook,
and it's my brother, and he says,
if you're on Facebook, go follow me on X_7 Studios, and I got a group called The 7 on there too, so you can go.
I live in Los Angeles.
Follow those things for me, man.
It's not easy to
and then spread the word. If you follow me on IG and all that too.
What do you do when somebody gives you, in a moment that is your biggest opportunity and the greatest moment of your life, the worst news of your life? You have two choices. You can leave, which is what I wanted to do, and deal with those emotions, or stay and take advantage of the opportunity that was in front of me, but bottle up those emotions. And that's what I chose to do. I compartmentalized my emotions, and I stayed. And I tell you what, that came at a detriment.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I made some adjustments on my stream. I got a new camera. It's my wife's camera, but she wasn't using it. It was just collecting dust.
Okay.
And then I stream on Instagram now. Found out how to stream from here on Instagram, so I go live on there sometimes. I'm an introvert, man, so I don't be wanting to be bothered with people.
Out of my radio,
I'm just trying to come out my shell a little bit.
Song I needed to hear at the moment I needed to hear it.
Like, I hold a conversation and talk to people. And I have energy and all that other stuff, but it's not a desire. Like, some people just have to have all of that. I'm not one of those people.
Let it be. Now, let me tell you something about Paul McCartney. I don't know him. I've never met him before in my life. Never even been to the town that he grew up in. Our life experiences couldn't be more different.
I'm about to get up out of here. And finish making this food I'm about to eat.
As long as I got you, there's nothing.
I appreciate you stopping by, but I'm definitely gonna try to get a schedule. At least if I can, I'm gonna try to start with at least one day a week. Either Friday, Saturday, or Wednesday, one of those days. I don't know, but I'm gonna try to definitely just get it like one day a week, where at least, I mean, I can have something to commit to. So you inspire me to do that, bro.
I'm happy that I got you as my girl.
So yeah, enjoy the music, and I'll be back.
Never before in our lifetime. I know that love isn't perfect, but with you, girl, it's so worth it. In this moment, we gon' take it, make it, break it. I know that love isn't perfect. With you, girl, no, it's so worth it. In this pandemic, I don't wanna live it, so I'm gonna tell you, I just wanna be yours.